What's up, Pelicans fans? Give us a second. I know apparently there's some people in the room. We're just gonna send a little Twitter link out telling people that we're live, and we'll get this kicked off in a second. So just give us one moment here. Yeah, we Ned, we're live. Read your comments. We're not talking right now, just waiting for the room to populate a little, and then we're just tweeting stuff out. Okay. Anyways, I think anyone who wants to tune in can tune in. Before we start, I did want to make a quick statement on the ruling of the Roe versus Wade case on Friday. If you weren't paying attention, millions of women and people with uteruses had reproductive rights taken from them. And we want to say that we stand with the women, and now is the time to act. This is not an issue we can afford to be passive about and wait for the lawmakers to do something. Anywhere you can help, whether it's donating to reproductive right funds, reproductive justice funds, reaching out to women that are in your life and people with uteruses in your life who may be going through a tough time. Just lend your support. So just wanted to get that out of the way and let people know where we stand.
Just one thing to add there, and obviously I'm fully in lockstep with you on this, but speak up. I mean, if you feel passionately about this subject, I mean, speak up. Obviously, not everyone has the means to donate, but just I know I've spoken to friends who've reached out to me. People I haven't talked to in years, just saying thank you for speaking up even just making sure that people who feel similarly have feel like they have allies. So that's really the main message I wanted to convey. Besides obviously, sorry, this is a little bit of an emotional subject for me, but I feel very strongly about this, and I want everyone who feels the same to make sure that other people, women, just know that you're there for them and will fight with them. So that's it.
Appreciate you saying that, Mason. We can begin talking about the basketball stuff, even though it's a little heavy after that. I do think people who say that sports aren't political are missing the point. This isn't politics. This is life. This is people's existence on the line. So appreciate that. We're going to go and start talking about the draft. We were there, or I was there specifically in Brooklyn. It was a fun time, and hoping to take y'all through that process and what it was like. After we do that, we are going to try to get some questions in. But if you have questions in the meantime, feel free to pop them in the comments. They populate in our little side chat up here. And once those comments starts coming through, we can put them on the screen, and we'll be able to answer them for you. But Mason, I was in Brooklyn, man. Shit was crazy. It was unbelievable. Before I get into that, just wanted to say, what were you doing on draft night, and where was your head? Like, what was your setup? What was going on with you?
Not nearly as cool as your setup. I had a baseball game. I joined a league here in Detroit, and of course, we had a game that night. But I was literally it was like the 6th or 7th inning, and I was in left field, and we were on.
Were you picking flowers?
Yeah, pretty much, man. We were it was the half inning before that. We finished hitting, and it was like the 7th pick. Whereas the 7th pick was on the clock. I was like, or the 6th pick. I was like, I'm gonna miss this damn pick. But quick inning, and we got back in the dugout, and the game was just ending for us. And then Pelicans were on the clock, and literally as I'm walking away from the field, I saw the Dyson Daniels. Very, very happy about it. You're a huge influence in that. Obviously, I'm everyone knows I'm not a huge NBA draft evaluator. I watch. I'll basically read the experts essentially. I trust the experts, and I view you as an expert. And so you seem very happy about it. But we can talk about the player later. Tell people about the experience, because that's it. I want to go at some point in my life. It's really awesome that you were able to check it out and interview Trey. Like, it was so cool. Just tell the folks about it.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I guess I'll start from the top. I got in Wednesday afternoon, the day before the draft, I had a hotel in downtown Brooklyn, about a 5-minute walk from Barclays. So it was a very quick walk. I spent that evening just walking around, getting the lay of the land, got some really nice pizza at Grimaldi's, I believe is the place name. It's right on the waterfront, where the Brooklyn Bridge crosses over to Manhattan, and the Manhattan Bridge is there. Really, really beautiful area, really cool scene. Just walked around, definitely saw a lot of folks with basketball related gear, just jerseys, and a lot of Magic fans were out there because they had the number 1 pick. Obviously, I'm a little bit, I don't know where it was during the Zion thing, but I was like, man, I should have been at the draft when Zion was going 1. I bet that would have been nuts. And then we settled in. I made a couple texts and phone calls to make sure everything was on plan for tomorrow. At that point, the intel I was receiving was basically, yep, like Dyson is their guy, and they're optimistic that he'll be there at 8. That was their read on it. Based on the intel that we're getting, it sounds like Damian Lillard really wanted Sharp. He was the driving force behind that. And while people in the Portland front office had big fans in Dyson, there was a big driving factor in the name of Damian Lillard moving things along, helping the Pelicans. So that was the intel at that point, and the Pelicans were confident, cautious, right? Nervous, apprehensive, because all it takes is one team to kind of blow everything up. But it was, okay, Dyson, and then if Dyson doesn't work, the backup plan is Jang. And they could have explored other options, maybe like if they felt like Sohan was going to make it past the Spurs or whatever. Clearly he wouldn't have. Sohan wouldn't have made it past the Spurs because both Jang and Sohan were there, but there was a good chance they could have gotten Jang at 10. And so maybe that was a deal that would have went through had Dyson not been on the board at that time.
Sharp was never, at least from what you understand, in the consideration for the Pelicans at 8. If the Blazers are going with Dyson.
No. Sharp was not in the consideration from my understanding. I don't know at what point he would have been. Had XYZ players been off the board or had XYZ deal been on the board, if they trade back to like 14, is he there? Is he consideration then? But I don't know. But I think realistically, in terms of what they knew about where he could have been picked and what their options were in terms of like where their pick is and what the trades were, he was not a realistic option, a live option for them. And so yeah, just checked in. That was the buzz the night before. Didn't really change the morning of. I walked over to the Barclays Center in the afternoon, right about 1 or 2 or 3 maybe. Set up shop there. Did some interviews with some local folks. Set up and did some interviews for myself for Fletcher actually. Sent some clips back. Had the nice little official WDSU mic. That was kind of cool. It was a cool experience. And then went and got ramen nearby, and it was a really good joint. But after the food stuff, made my way back to Barclays. And at that point, they had opened it up for like credential pickup and stuff. And so I walked in, signed off on my credentials. They had a pretty it's a huge production. The draft is an absolutely enormous production in which they are cataloging and tagging like every person that's like coming in and making sure they have the appropriate credentials and access. So like, yeah, they asked for who I was and who I was affiliated with, got me my stuff, and then like pointed to me like, okay, like here's your assigned seats. Here's what, where you need to be. Here's the media room. If you need to go down to it, here's where like the one-on-one rooms are going to be. Here's where the press room is going to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I was like, okay, there was just a lot of information at that point. My head was like, I don't really know if I like absorbed all of it. So let me just get down there and figure things out. And the Pelicans were really nice. They had called me prior to that. They were like, hey, like we'll have our social media team there. And feel free to like, if you run into them, feel free to kind of like tag along with them, and they'll help you out if you need anything. So that was really cool. But as soon as I like exit the little area, walk down to like the concourse of Barclays, I'm going there, and then there's Trey, and Trey's just walking there, and Trey's like, yo, what's up, dude? And I'm like, what's going on? And so we caught up for a little bit. He seemed to be on the same page in terms of Dyson than Jang. And I was like, dude, I don't know where I'm going. Like, you know where any of the media stuff is? He's like, yeah, the red carpet this way. Like, come on down. And so I just kind of tagged along with Trey, and it's like, I guess like his they had some people with his agency, some PR folks with the agency, and he was with Complex Sports because he was behind the mic and a camera. He was interviewing all the other Lotto players who were invited to the green room, and some other folks. So went over to the red carpet.
I need your evaluation of Trey Murphy, the interviewer. I mean, he's a rookie.
He's a star, man. If I had to do like an interviewing draft, if you had to draft players for interviews, man, I think he's an easy Lotto pick there. No question, man. It's like especially on the Pelicans, like it would go like CJ and Trey. Like I think, oh well, hold on, Jose's pretty good. Jose and those Najee interviews are pretty good.
Najee, yeah, come on, Najee's got to be at the top.
Yeah. No, I think Trey, just like in terms of, I think Trey's up there. I would take Trey. I would take Trey over them. Easy. Actually, that's an easy choice. So he set up shop and he was there, and every time basically like all of the lottery picks, they had like different stations for like all these like different photo shoots to kind of like show off their suits, their jewelry, anything else that they wanted to talk about. And they just kind of like went in like a little circle, and then they each had like their moment on the red carpet. And the way the red carpet was set up is like there's different stops with like different media. So like they had Taylor Rooks interviewing them right before they got to Trey, and then they had like ESPN social, and then they had like Sports Illustrated. They had all the major platforms were there trying to get stuff on their socials and whatnot, along with the teams, as well as the teams people. So Trey set up shop, and I just kind of set up shop behind him because I was like, yeah, like, if he's going to be interviewing all of them, that's a quick and easy way for me to cover not only all of the players in the draft, but get the Pelicans guy, which I'm here to cover the Pelicans, to doing all that. And so it was really cool to kind of watch him ask these players. He had like I said, 3 questions were basically like, like if you had to eliminate one of these rappers off your list, who would it be? I think it was like Drake, Kendrick, J. Cole, and like someone else. And then it was like, there's a couple other questions, and the final question that he would ask is like, hey, if you were to play Trey Murphy in one-on-one tomorrow or today, like who would win? And anytime basically someone would say, oh yeah, I would win, of course I would win, he'd be like, that's a cap. And so he'd have a cap counter, and he's like, so eventually they got up to like 12 or 13 caps where players like, yeah, I could beat you. And so that was pretty funny.
Did anyone say that Trey would win?
I think it was there was like Jabari Smith said something like, I don't know, or like we'll find. No, Chet definitely said I don't know, like we'll find out, which is interesting because Chet was also on record saying like I'll be the best player in the NBA in 2 months or something like that. And then Jabari Smith said something similar too, where he was like, okay, Trey's like, that's not a lie. Okay, I'll give you that. And so it was cool because like watching him interview like other very, very tall humans, and just kind of put in perspective how tall Trey is was, I mean, you guys saw the video of me next to Trey. Like I look like I'm half his size, and it was him standing next to Mark Williams was like the biggest one for me. Cause like, I know everyone's like, oh, well, camera angles. Like, no, I was there. And let me tell you, he was not that much shorter than Mark Williams. He was straight up taller than Jalen Duren. Like he was, I didn't get the picture of him and Jalen Duren side to side. He was straight up taller than him. It was pretty impressive. I'm like, man, Trey is an enormous human being. And so when Dyson got to the Trey spot, and you guys have like seen the video, I actually didn't know they would publish that video. I thought he was like doing it off record because he like looked at us and like looked at the camera. He's like, I'm gonna like call it. And then he was like, yo, Dyson, like future Pelican. And then Dyson was like, yeah, we'll see. And I didn't know the camera was rolling at that point. I thought it was just like he was goofing off with him. But yeah, they caught that moment on video, and that was very cool. And after that, once the lottery picks had done their circuit, like Trey and I got down and did our little thing where he made a special shout out to the Jane Gang. That was actually it was not scripted in any sense. It was entirely him, and so that was fun. But once that was done, just got some food and took our seats for like we had some media seats. Took our seats, watched the whole thing proceed. And as you can like, once we like sat down, that's when like the Woj tweets started coming about like that the Magic are seriously considering Paulo at number 1, and it was like, what's going on? And so we were like, okay, this is going to be this is going to be a surprise just from the get-go. And then once it kicked off and Paolo went 1, everything kind of went off the rocks for a little bit. So Paolo going 1 essentially meant Jabari was going 3. Jabari going 3 means teams are calling Houston. Teams are like, hey, what's up with Jabari? Do y'all want him? What do what's it, what would it take to move up? If we offer you XYZ amount of first, what would it? The Pelicans were one of those teams. They called Houston. And again, it's like, it's due diligence. You have to, right? Because like, it's way harder to move up from 8 to 1, but 8 to 3, maybe you feel like you can swing something. And Houston was basically like, like you can give us the moon. And they asked a lot, and the Pelicans were like, yeah, no, it's okay. And I'll let you all figure out what the idea of a lot is. But trust me, it's not something the Pelicans want to give up. And so that was that. And then with Ivy, so then the Kings took Keegan at 4. And so while it was on 3, like three went off, the Pelicans were prepared to also like move up to draft Dyson if they felt like the board was going to shake out a certain way. And there was like a brief moment where it was like, maybe like, is there a possibility Dyson's going to go somewhere that he shouldn't, that he's not projected to go. But when Ivy ended up falling, it was like, okay, Detroit's got 5. And again, that was another team that other teams are calling. Like obviously New York called to Detroit about Ivy a lot. The Pels also like kick tires on it, not in like any serious fashion. It's just like you have to make the call at that point, right? You have to make a call to every team that's in front of you and be like, hey, like, is that something we can pull off? And the King or the Pistons were basically, hell no. Like we want Ivy, and he's not going anywhere.
Few teammates during the game that were super pumped about that. They were fired up to get Ivy, and it's gonna be a fun team in Detroit.
Yeah, man. And so that was that. And then at that point, the Pelicans were basically monitoring Indiana and Portland. It's still like a good, like they're like, the intel was still the intel, like Indiana's going to take Mathurin and then Portland's going to take Sharp. And that's ended up how it going. But you just never know at that point, right? You just kind of like, shit, like what's going on? But like, I do know the Pelicans valued Dyson as the next guy over the top 4, like on their own personal board. Like that's how high they were on Dyson. Like it was the top 4, and then they valued Dyson. Like that's how high they were on him. And when like Trajan mentioned in his press conference, like when Portland selected Sharp, he was like, the room exploded for good reason. They got their guy that they were basically locked in on. And at that point, you're emotionally invested in this choice too, because if you're just like, that's my number one choice, that's my number one choice, that's my number one choice, there's like this human element of like, yeah, like I know I like Jang, but like I really just want my guy, and I'm gonna be upset if I don't get my guy. So there was that element to it. But yeah, once he was there at 8, obviously they were very happy. And the way it worked for me when I was out there is I watched the pit go down. You have a considerable amount of time before you need to go anywhere to interview him, because they like it takes takes a few minutes for him to walk up to the stage. Takes a few minutes for him to like do like there's like several stations of interviews that they got to do like on the draft floor, whether it's like the ESPN crew, the TNT crew, or whatever, like the NBA TV crew or whatever. There's like it's like 10 different like interviews that they got to do, 10 different like pictures they got to take. And from then on, like once the pick was made, I made my way down to like the bowels of Barclays Center, and that's where they were going to start doing like the press stuff for like their average media, not like the superstar media. And so they had these like little like rooms like set up on, there's like a practice court in Barclays, and they had basically curtained off some like press conference rooms. They had like a little like table, and there was media from like pretty much everywhere in like each of those rooms. And you're able to just like sit there and then like ask your guy. Like they basically they have a person who picks like who's gonna like answer questions. Like you basically like raise your hand. There's like a person that's directing where the mic's going. So he'll be like, yeah, like left seat, etc., whatever, like third row, second seat. So I got to ask Dyson a couple questions there, and then after that, they go to like one-on-one rooms basically, where it's just a small little booth that's set up for the team and the team specifically. And that's not where like, this is like not where like common media is allowed. This is like where you're for like with the team and like team social. And then like I also like kind of just tagged along with the Pels. This is where I like attached myself to the hip to the Pels people. And they were just so kind. Like shout out to Chris and Tatiana. Like they are just awesome people. And they set up a little booth, and that's where they did the Zoom interview with all the media back in New Orleans. And then once that Zoom interview was done, it was like I had time to ask him questions, and that's when I talked to him about the food and like playing for Willie Green and all that. And then we just kind of followed him around like his like various different photo shoots, just kind of get like an idea of like what they have to do. So they take him, they like usher him to like another room where he has to do like a photo shoot for Panini, and then they usher him to like another photo shoot, and then another photo shoot, and then another photo shoot. And then one of the photo shoots, they like surprised him with a picture of himself as a baby. Well, they actually surprised him with a G League Ignite ball. That was actually really cool. And then they surprised himself with like a picture of himself as a baby, and then asked him about his family and stuff. And that was like very wholesome. And so after those rounds, we basically were done, and I was like exhausted because like it had been like a very long day. And then like I was getting some intel at that point. I was like, all right, we're gonna go home, right? I was getting some intel at that point that, oh, okay, well maybe the Pelicans aren't done. There might be something on the table for like a pick in the late 20s somewhere, depending on how the board shakes out. And with the way it was falling, there were still like a couple of guys left in the green room that could have been there at the pick. And I was like, all right, like do we stay in the off chance like they pick a guy in the green room and they like this trade goes through or not? And then once we got like, we waited like a few picks and like kind of got like a coast is clear, because at that point like several people had fallen and they were like, no, like the second round seems pretty promising. We're not going to commit to any first round pick and like like take on a guaranteed contract there. Just let's see how the second round shakes out. And they were surprised as anyone that EJ fell to 41, like the way he did. And that was a huge reason why they didn't like make any moves to move up in the second round, just because they were like they had a lot of good options on the table, and EJ like having a first round grade was just absolutely mind blowing, and they pounced on that opportunity to take EJ there. And then obviously they selected Carlo Matkovic, who is going to be stashed in Europe. And then they got Darion Sebron, who is someone that they were a fan of for a long time, and they didn't think he would be there. Like they thought he would get drafted at some point, and two, like they didn't think he would be a two-way player. They thought that someone would give him maybe something a little more, or like he would just get picked, so they wouldn't have an option to him. And so when that happened, and obviously like I think two things people got to understand here, even with EJ, is the second round is hugely agent driven. If someone does not want their player picked, their agent will make it very difficult in terms of the deals that they're willing to accept, because in the second round, there's no guaranteed money. You basically negotiate with the team with the deal that's on the table. And so a lot of teams, you kind of see like those Hinkie specials, those Lou Dort specials, those Najee specials, where it's like rookie minimum money that has a lot of non-guaranteed years. And it's like 4 years of team control. And it's like actually like a very like anti-labor agreement when it comes to these players, or, it's a two-way option. And so agents can basically be like, yeah, we're not going to sign anything you put on our table to drive their players to a point where they need to go. And so I think it speaks hugely to what the Pelicans are building and their reputation around the league with agents. Unlike, what some people might want you to believe, cough, JJ Redick. Sorry, JJ. I know we've moved beyond this. I know.
Trying to get him on the pod, man. Come on, man.
I know we're trying to get him on the pod. I'm sorry, JJ. My fault. If you're listening to this, my bad, bro. But both EJ and his agent, agreeing to come to New Orleans, and Darion taking the two-way as an undrafted free agent. As a free agent, there are teams, especially contenders, who need to fill roster spots. You're looking at the Lakers who like are spending heavy amounts of cash to move into the second round just so they can like get a guy and get production. And so you have, as a free agent, you have your pick, right? And so to pick New Orleans of all teams and to understand like this is where they want to be and like this is a developmental program and to agree to a two-way for Darion is it really speaks to the organizational culture that the Pelicans are building.
Yeah, it blew me away. And I think you mentioned casually roster spots, but I think specifically with New Orleans, it's not just the roster spots. It's the fact that they are one of the deepest teams in the league, and you've got to really fight to get any minutes for this team. I mean, and so the fact that not only they're willing to take a two-way, but take a two-way with New Orleans that has, obviously not the super contender level, but they do run 10, 12 deep at this point. There are guys who played in the playoffs for them last year that may not even be in the rotation this year. And so that's tough. And for a player to come and take that kind of deal who could probably, be in a fight for real minutes from game one somewhere else, it speaks volumes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the Birmingham developmental program is a big part of that. Ryan Pannoni, the head coach there, is very, very, very well regarded in the league circles. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised. Who is this Skip Bayless knockoff in the comments? This I need y'all to see this comment. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Someone's a Skip Bayless comment. Anyways,
I like the dedication, like to actually use the Skip Bayless picture too, not just the name.
Yeah, I mean, anyways, that's pretty funny. But yeah, just Ryan Pannoni and the developmental staff in G League, they're very well high regard, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Ryan being a part-time head coach for the summer league squad or a full-time head coach for the summer league squad. Definitely going to be there in some capacity. So yeah, I mean, it's just, again, the Pelicans are bringing in people in their organization that they feel are competitors, players who are willing to fight through adversity, players who are versatile and tough, right? Every single selection they've made, basically dating back to like last year. I want to say prior to that. I mean, that's been the theme though. Cause like I was trying to think prior to that with Kyra, but I don't really remember who the second round picks were that year. Did they have a second round pick that year? Kyra's year? No one of consequence, right? Was that the year they brought Najee in? Yeah, that was. So yeah, it was Kyra and Najee. They were rooks together. So yeah, same thing with Najee. He's just a versatile, tough dude who's kind of like willing to get.
And Melly, technically, right? He was a year after that. No, or a year before that. When was Melly a rookie, an older rookie?
Man, get out of here. We're not talking about Melly. And so, yeah, just like bringing in players who can play multiple positions, players who are not literally like the won't bow down stuff. Like they drink that Kool-Aid, right? And they believe it. And that's part of what the last season was about in terms of Willie Green, making sure the Pelicans stay on track after they started 1-12, making sure they literally don't let this thing go off the rails and they fight their way back to the playoff spot. So that's also the theme here, where it's like, hey, we're going to draft players who are multi-position, who we feel that can fit in around our stars at any point. And I think the key here is, we've already pointed out, it's already been talked about ad nauseum, is they care about players who are international. They care about players who are from the South. And you look at in Dyson, who is Australian, his roots in North Carolina. Darion, I believe, is from Norfolk, Virginia. Played at NC State. And where is EJ from? Let me look this up real quick. Do you know where EJ is from? I should know this. I'm so upset that it's not pulling. Let's see. Belleville. Where's Illinois? Illinois. Okay, so he's not from the South. So yeah, I guess that's not the guy that's from the South. But either way, they're prioritizing those players, and they're prioritizing players who can. What? Oh, Indiana. I don't know what they're going on. Anyways, I think it's Illinois. I'm pretty sure it's Illinois. They're prioritizing players who can contribute in multiple ways, and they're like, okay, shooting is a skill we can coach. and they're not specifically going after. I don't think they mind shooters, right? They drafted Trey, and if they feel like this is a versatile player we can bring in, like EJ can shoot. EJ shot like 37% from three his final year, and he was actually extremely good from the mid range spot. And so it's not that they are like averse to players who can shoot. They want to make sure they're bringing in a guy who, if their shot isn't going down, can give them something that can still find their way to put up stuff on the scoreboard, but also like also contribute defensively. So it's those are the kind of people they're looking for, and it seems like they have a very clear vision of what they want to do around Zion.
Yeah,
and Brandon. Sorry, it's neglectful of me to not mention Brandon.
Yeah, for sure. So I think so. Let's talk a little more about where we stand here with the roster, because you mentioned the two-way for Sebron, and we know that the Pelicans had one roster spot, and that's going to Dyson. So they're at 15, they're at one two-way, and you've got a second-round pick here, an EJ who had a first-round grade, and there's a lot of ways this can go, right? And so, any thoughts on what you expect and what you do based on the options here?
I know the answer to that, and I'm not allowed to say it. So,
fair enough.
So
we can give the two main options, right? Because there really only is two.
I mean, so let's yeah. I mean, those are the two options, right? You create a roster spot, you take a two-way, and so I don't think those are mutually exclusive, though. Like, I think you can create a roster spot for someone else too, if you wanted. So yeah, I mean, I think cap wise, they are flirting with the tax line still. I wouldn't be surprised if they want a little bit of breathing room under that, just to give them flexibilities of making trades that allow them to take on more salary and not impede that. And I do want to mention, with regards to the tax, the Warriors, the Nets, the Lakers, and a few other teams are going to have absolutely massive tax bills. And the way that works is, at the end of the year, those tax dollars get redistributed to teams that are not tax-paying teams. And so this doesn't impact any basketball stuff, really. I mean, I guess it depends on the owner, right? Some owners are just going to take that money and put it in their pocket, right? Some owners are just like, okay, cool. Like, that's our money. Screw y'all. Other owners are going to take that money and invest it in the team, because that's going to be stuff they can reinvest back into their program and take advantage, basically get subsidized by these larger teams. I want to share something that will put into perspective how different of an owner Gail Benson is when it comes to this stuff when compared to her late husband, Tom Benson. They had opportunities to sell the pick, the 52nd pick. I think it's 52nd pick. They had opportunities that would have brought in cash. That cash would have gone straight to ownership. They instead opted to stash a guy, someone who is not going to see their G League team, their regular team, anything like that for a year, maybe two. They could have had the money. They did not do it. So that should be something for your consideration, because I'm pretty sure cash considerations was one of our favorite draft picks for years and years and years under Tom.
Yeah. No, that for sure. And this isn't like a, bow down to ownership type thing. It's how different is this from what we used to see, right? That's the big message, is that, they would sell picks all the time. And now it's suddenly, we have ownership that at least, is investing back into the team, which is great to see.
Yeah. I mean, the exception, I think, here is when they sold the BJ Boston pick last year, I believe, or maybe it was 2 years. I'm forgetting. These years blur together. But when they sold the BJ Boston pick, that was kind of like, oh shit, we're paying Alvin and Stan and all of together. Let's try to get some of that money back. And that was, also like coming off the COVID shit. I'm not trying to like cap for billionaires. I think they should pay up for their teams. But I do believe that Miss Benson is willing to pay for a team that's good and competitive and invest in it. I do think that they need to like prove that they're on that tier, but I do not believe for 1 second that there's any reluctance to get into the tax if the opportunity calls for it. Like if they told him tomorrow, like Kevin Durant's coming to town, and they're going to be a tax team, they're like, okay, Kevin Durant's coming to town. They'll do it. Kevin Durant's not coming to town, so don't go crazy about about that. But yeah, so there's that, and then so what's next is basically figuring out the roster. I'm going to ask you, do you have any suspicions on what might happen in terms of roster spots?
So I think so. Matt Moore asked us both this question on Twitter yesterday, and we responded within 2 minutes of each other, and we gave very similar answers. And that I think it seems like we both agree that if there are any players that move, it's probably either Devontae or Jackson. And so
you can't rule out Temple either.
Huh?
You can't rule out Temple either.
Yeah, fair. And so I guess I'm thinking about guys who would be potentially rotation players. And that's Garrett Temple's not. And so thank God after last season.
You sure, man?
I guess
we're gonna see like somebody go down and Garrett Temple gets the minutes before Dyson.
Pelicans Twitter will erupt. No, I mean I think. I think that one or two of those guys. I mean, and you could also package those guys together. They create salary for you, kind of in that nice little mid range. Of course, you've got to be very careful at this point in the game because of how much salary you already have committed. And your point earlier about a tax team, I think we'll get there at some point, but I don't think we're there yet. And so there's not really that much flexibility that you have from in terms of being underneath the tax line. But I think it's. If someone comes calling for Devontae and will kind of just trade you an expiring for him, I think you have to do that if you're the Pelicans. But right now I think he has to be viewed as somewhat of a negative asset. But we'll see how free agency plays out, right? Teams there's no one has cap space. Teams have to find ways to add talent, right? And so if Devontae Graham, if one team can sell themselves on Devontae Graham helping, he's not getting paid a ton of money. It's basically mid-level money, and so there could be a scenario where he moves. And then I guess with Jackson, do you really see yourself giving him his second contract with the other guys you have under contract? And I don't see it at this point. And there are other guys that just need minutes on this team. There's so many guys who need minutes, and so I think if anyone's going to move, it's going to be those two. As far as guys who would be
Devontae
and Jax, yeah.
Yeah, I got a weird echo on your side. Anyways, yeah, dude. I think that's accurate. I think it's going to be very interesting to kind of watch this point guard market play out. We know the Wizards are in the market for one. We know the Knicks are hounding after Jalen Brunson, who the Mavs may or may not match. We know the Knicks paid a pretty penny to dump Kemba, which was a confusing draft day move. But hey, go Knicks. Let's do that. Obviously, Kyrie's going to have some sort of imprint on how the market plays out, and then Brogdon as well. So you're basically looking for teams that might talk themselves into, hey, we could kind of use Devontae as a backup. His contract is basically there's 2 years left of it because the final year, the third year after this is mostly non-guaranteed. So you would have this year and next year, and you're looking for teams that are willing to create cap space in about 2 years or use an expiring next year to kind of make something happen. The tax situation is interesting to monitor because there are a lot of teams that are like way deep in the tax bill, and there's going to be a lot of owners that want the windfall from that. And because of that, there's going to be teams that work to create space under the tax and get that stuff. So it might not be easy just to like dump anymore. It might cost a lot more with teams knowing that that's kind of on the horizon, especially for teams like the Nuggets, for example, who are staring down an enormous tax bill with Jokic's Supermax coming. And they already have Murray on the books. They already have MPJ on the books. They already have Aaron Gordon on the books. And then they have to figure out what they're doing with Will Barton and all of those people. And so that's going to be an interesting team to watch in terms of any moves that they might pull. Would not be surprised. I think Tim Connolly is someone who would have done everything he could to keep that core together. Tim Connolly is no longer there in Denver. So that's going to be a team to watch. Would not be surprised if they make big moves there. And then what was I going to say? So yeah, I don't think it's going to be easy for the Pelicans to straight up like find like a dumping ground for Devontae or Jackson. In my opinion, it has to be kind of like what you hinted at is like a trade for an expiring, or like you combine the two for a player that's like consolidating them into one salary, and then that opens up a roster spot in some minutes for you. I strongly believe that Jax does not have a future on this team, and I'm not saying that because I don't like that player. I'm saying that because I understand the reality of his contract situation and the minutes on this team and what he and his agent desire. So I would be pretty surprised if he's on the team come September. Let's just put it that way.
So he's the guy you think is most likely individually to be gone between now and September, October?
But I mean, it's hard to move him in as an individual because his salary spot is so small. And so, like, I don't think they do like a 1-for-1 salary thing. I think they have to consolidate. So it's going to be Jax plus something, or Jax, is it Jax plus Temple that gets him in the 10, 11 million range? Or is it Jax plus Devontae that puts him in like the 16 million range? I don't know. And like, I don't know if they do all three of those things. It's like we send 3 for 1. But I see a lot of comments. I'm going to bring up some comments.
Can I ask you one quick question before you do that?
Yeah.
Where do you stand on the balance between getting the players are going to be part of the future of this team minutes against playing guys who you want to put on the trade market and kind of try to make sure their value doesn't crater, right? So like if you think that if you have Jax or if you have Graham on this team to start the year, are you making sure they're at least in the rotation somehow so they don't just people don't just forget about them and not value them? Or do you move on and you try to get the guys are part of this team minutes?
I want to get out in front of that and just make sure you don't even have that issue to start the season. However, to start the season, to me at that point, no team is going to be like, oh, well, Devontae's playing more minutes. Let's give up more picks for him. I think teams are pretty comfortable in their assessment of who those players are at this moment. And I do not want to – I want to play the best basketball players. I don't want to get into like playing front office games. I want to play the best basketball players. And so it was clear last year they should have been playing Trey over Temple. I don't want situations like that to arise. And so if Jose is the better basketball player at this point than Devontae, I'm not saying that he is. I'm saying if he was, I would want Jose to get those minutes. If Dyson was the better basketball player than both those players, I would want Dyson. I love Jose, but if Dyson was straight up better than him, I would want him getting those minutes. So to me, this team, this is where we talk about like, oh, like they're ready to win now. Yeah, if they're ready to win now, then you play your best players. You don't play games with it. And yeah, sure, I'm sure like rookies have to like work into that stuff and earn their minutes. I get it, but we should not be hell bent on making them earn things. If they're just good, to play them.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so I guess I have a question for you: is if we are moving those players, is there a position, role, skill set, archetype that you're looking to add to the team that you feel like could get minutes if injuries allow them to?
I think it's the idea of Garrett Temple last year, but someone who can actually add value on the court.
What does that mean?
That means it's a guy who actually is good enough to. It's a similar position. It's a similar. It's a veteran who is respect. Like, because Garrett Temple, the team can't say enough good things about the person Garrett Temple and the teammate Garrett Temple and the mentor Garrett Temple, but he can't play anymore. And so I look for a guy like probably someone who's on the older side of more, because that's probably going to be a cheaper guy to go get. But someone who can really play and be a rotation player, someone who can, but kind of around that wing type or guard / wing who can defend and knock down an open three.
I disagree. I don't want to introduce any of those guard wing types because I want all of those minutes going to Trey, all of them. Like if I can get Trey past 30 minutes a game, I am doing it. And if I have any minutes left over, give him the Dyson and give them to Dyson at the 1, 2, 3, and 4. I don't care where you put him, just slot him in there. Any leftover minutes, I'm fine rolling into the season with that. And then as you get to the deadline and you're like, okay, well, these guys aren't getting it done, fine, go make a deadline move that shores up your rotation. Those guys are probably going to be cheaper at that point. You know, like you could probably get a Terrence Ross for crazy cheap at the deadline. Probably, right? You could probably get a lot of these folks that are just like right now, teams like, well, if you want them, like, got to give up more. No, let me roll in with this team, and if I need to adjust, I'll do it. What I really want is I want a legitimate big man behind Jonas who can, if Jonas goes down for any period of time, start. And you're like, okay, like we can trust this guy to defend and rebound and get things done. Everyone else will kind of take care of the offense. But I don't believe Billy Hernangomez is that guy. I know that he's like started in situations and like put up double doubles and stuff. To me, against any quality teams, you're going to have an issue if he has to start for any long period of time. I think he's best suited for like giving you energy minutes, like maybe 15, 20 minutes, like on random nights in February, where you have like guys missing time and people are hurt and you're playing the Kings on a Tuesday and you're like, all right, cool. And then Billy Hernangomez comes in and puts up 15 points and 12 rebounds in 17 minutes. That's exactly what you need with Billy. But in terms of like any like meaningful stuff, ideally that player is someone that can protect the rim, gives you a little bit of a different dynamic than Jonas. And then you could also use him in certain matchups to close games where you feel like it's advantageous. So you play center by committee. You can have Nance out there as center. You can have Jonas out there as center. You can have this big man out there as center. Maybe, if our development gets to that point, like, Trey or Herbert are going to be taking those spots, or EJ is going to be taking those spots. But I think that's a future conversation rather than a immediate conversation. Who knows? Maybe I'm proven wrong. I think it's more of a long term, but in the short term, I want someone who gives me optionality to close games with, and someone who I can rely on to start games if I need to in a pinch.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, makes total sense, and I think the challenge is thinking about. So the priority number one, I don't know if you agree or disagree, but the priority number one for me is it's got to be an expiring contract you're trading for, right? Someone whose money you're getting off the books. So that being said, is there someone in that salary range?
What's your reasoning behind that? What's your reasoning behind that?
Tax mostly. I don't want to have. I mean, because if we're talking that salary range, that like if you're talking Graham and Jackson, if you're combining them, or if it's even just Graham, I mean, that's. I don't know if I want to pay that much to a 5 anyway.
Right
behind Jonas, but I think I prefer the flexibility of an expiring in that situation. And so then I'm thinking about who are the guys who are in that salary range who fit that description. But this is an exercise, right? I don't know the wings.
No, I don't think you have to like match that set. Like I think you could like find a trade for those people and then like bring in your big man through like other ways. Like let's say you open up enough room to use your MLE. Like let's say you do find a cap space team to work with and you're doing that. So like Detroit, for example. Detroit's a fun one because they brought in Duren. Would you like? First of all, would you do a 1-to-1 trade Jackson for beef stew? Isaiah Stewart.
What's his contract situation?
He is going into his third year of a rookie scale deal.
Yeah, I mean,
I think he was the Cairo draft, right?
Yeah, I would definitely do that. Yeah.
And then, so could you work so then the Pelicans have to ask, can they work something around a Devontae, and Jax for Stewart and maybe like a small salary that the Pistons want to send over and they can just waive that guy, outright. And they'll have a considerable amount of space and open up the MLE. So like, something like that. And I think, Stu's not
like you got to pay the Pistons a pretty penny to use up that much cap space on a trade like that.
No, I agree. I'm just saying, like, can you work something around that? Can you do that with a cap space team? So like they're a cap space team The Spurs are a cap space team, and the Knicks are a cap space team. So those are kind of things. But like you might have to do like Jackson goes to one location and Devontae goes to another location or whatever.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, I'm very skeptical. There are so few teams with like the cap space to be, and there are teams like you said it 10-15 minutes ago about teams looking to move salary. So you may have to pay for that because it's a seller's market in that regard.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up a couple comments. Here's one that says, how many teams start a true quality center that you need to back up to JV for? So I think it's more than you think. So I think if you're playing the Lakers, doesn't matter who they're starting at center, you need a very big person out there to help you contain AD and their other big, whoever that's going to be. I think if you look at the Bucks with Brook Lopez and Giannis, you need a quality big out there. Sixers, duh. Cavs with their twin tower front court, duh. Nuggets with their MVP, their back-to-back MVP, yup. I think Gobert will kill you on the glass. Ayton will kill you in different ways if you're not able to do it. We're up to 7 already. I'm trying to think. There's a lot more. Who are the other centers? Nurk is an interesting one because I think like you can find ways to neutralize him depending on Portland's supporting cast. But if they're continuing to add perimeter talent, Nurk becomes harder to neutralize. And so you need someone who can again clean the glass and be a bigger body there. Like basically, I can list all these teams that I would not feel comfortable starting Jackson or Billy against. Like I would not want Billy going against Portland in any kind of pick and roll situation. I think Portland would absolutely murder him. Towns. Forgot about Towns. Bam. Forgot about Bam. Where are we at? That's 10. So that's a third of the league already. Capella's a hound on the glass, depending on what they do with John Collins. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think it goes beyond just like a 1-to-1 matchup. For me, it's like who's on their team and who is on their perimeter and what are they going to be tasked to do in the pick and roll. And so it's like that's where I'm at with those players. And I would like someone who can help me survive those minutes. And in terms of Larry as a stopgap, no, I do not want Larry getting starter center minutes. Closing minutes in burst, sure. I think the Pelicans would just get eaten alive on the glass. And we know that even though he's better at switching, he's not someone you really want to switch up against the best guards in the league because a 37-year-old Chris Paul made barbecue chicken out of him in every single isolation or pick and roll situation. So sorry, don't want Larry as the stopgap to start.
Every time I look at his height and I see 6'7", it blows me away. Like he doesn't play like a 6'7" guy, but at the same time he is 6'7", and it's only. I mean, I agree with you. He's probably not. He can't start at 5, but he can play there in spurts. And look, you could probably piece together what the guys Pelicans have on the roster. But to your point, there are certain teams you don't want that against. And I'm a little bit less concerned. I'm a little less concerned on the center front, I think, behind Jonas than you. But I think it's a reasonable thing to want, especially if you find the right fit. But I also. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like
you look at Toronto, who is Team 6'9", right? And that's their fans love that, and they all love that. And every single one of them has been clamoring, we need a competent big. Even the Bulls, who had Vucevic, who had a down year. Vucevic is someone also you don't want to start against really good guards. But he's someone that will take incompetent bigs and murder them. He can still score in the post if he needs to. So I don't know what's going to happen with them. But the Bulls, they had Vucevic, and they want a competent big. They want an upgrade from Vucevic, right? And so it's people are like, well, where's the value of the big? And I get it. I don't want to draft those kind of players in the top 10 or anything. But you need successful bigs to be a good team in the NBA, especially those who can hold their own positionally in terms of be in the right spots in rotation, be in the right spots in drop defense, be in the right spots to clean the glass and those kind of stuff. And so if that's there, I would love to get minutes for those kind of players. Isn't Stu too small? He an inch taller than Nance. I mean, yeah, I think it's a real problem. He's not a rim protector by any means. I think he would have to be an energy guy. I don't know if I trust him to start. Again, same thing with Billy, but he's very physical. That's for one thing. He's not going to shy down from contact. Like some guys play bigger than they are. But yeah, I think the rim protection is a major concern with Stu. That's not something that should be glossed over. Absolutely.
What's
If you all have more
not open
comments,
for
like keep popping it in the comment section, and we'll pull them out as much as we need.
Yeah. Mitch Rob?
Or Nerlens.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So the comment is from Alley Boy 507. I guess we have to think about it like the pod listeners are like, what's going on? Like they're just kind of saying things stream of conscious. Pod listeners were reading comments from the live comment chat and answering questions. So this is a question from Alley Boy 507. And the question is, what about the big man on the New York Knicks? Mitch Robinson has pending free agency, and Nerlens is on the contract for $9 million or so. And so like that's a situation where like, okay, the Knicks have cap space. Can you send Jax and Devontae to the Knicks and they get their point guard and they get their athletic big man backup, and do you get Nerlens? How do you feel about that one?
So we're getting Nerlens or we're getting
Nerlens?
He hates clutch, so that's a win in my book. No, I mean you can. He's expiring.
Yeah,
that's a perfect option. I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah. So I think my thing with Nerlens is if the intel checks out on him, if he's willing to buy into the team and his medicals are good because he is someone who's oft injured, pull the trigger. But also he, like you said, because he's an expiring, he just may be someone you want like to pull the trigger for anyway. And like if he's a problem on the court or if he's injured or whatever, you can, you've not invested too many resources in that player to where you can be like, all right, the contract's gonna come up later. Yeah, James Smith says Knicks are clearing space for Brunson. Yeah, we talked about that earlier. Maybe they don't get him, So that's kind of the possibilities that we're talking about. Is Knicks there might be some teams that miss out on the point guard sweepstakes that have space to where they look to other options. So and Nerlens is also someone where you could just do a Devontae for Nerlens swap and figure out a different Jackson location somewhere else. That's
That'd be really interesting. And I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? If they don't get, and we know the Knicks have a habit of not getting the free agents they want. And so if they strike out on Brunson and they're still looking for, the thing is like Devontae is not fooling anybody. He's not a lead guard. He's not a point guard. But if that's, maybe the Knicks can talk themselves into it. I mean, they've got.
Well, that would, if the front office believes in quickly, right? And they believe in RJ as ball handlers, then Devontae is someone that you could put in that Kemba role that they had and just put him in the bench. Also, that's really, really funny. Extremely funny if they spent a penny to move Kemba and they just trade for Devontae. That'd be batshit. And especially kind of given how like Charlotte replaced Kemba with Devontae for a hot second. I mean, not like intentionally, it just happened, right? Devontae had that baller year. After Kemba left, that would be really, really funny. That'd be incredibly funny. There's one called a comment from Shammer Bro. He says, "What about Rashawn Holmes?" Rashawn's a really good defender, underrated, albeit like not like a huge person. I just don't see any reason why the Kings are going to give him up. I like who is their big man? They drafted Keegan. They have Sabonis, and like who do they have behind Sabonis that they would be willing to just move off of Rashawn for? I mean, if Rashawn's just like angry there, which is very possible that he is, and he's like, get me out of here to a place that I need minutes, then how do you give him minutes on the Pels? Because like he sees himself as a starter. Can you give him 18 minutes? I don't know. I just don't see that as a realistic option. I think you need someone who like recognizes they're going to get 18 minutes at most on like some nights, and then some nights they might not play at all because Jonas is playing 37. and the others are going like Larry or whatever.
Whatever happened, he had some pretty serious legal allegations, right?
Like Rashawn Holmes did?
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about that.
Oh, I don't remember, but I want to refresh my memory on that before I respond or anything. So, yeah, I feel like the archetype we're talking about is who was the other big man from the Kings that went to the Deadman? Like, I feel like
dude, he's like 40 years old.
I know, for like 2 or 3 years ago, he was like, "Oh, the rim protecting big who can shoot threes," and it's like, yeah, I mean, but he hasn't, and like ever since everyone wanted him, he got 0 minutes anywhere else. So I don't know.
Here's a comment from Kenneth Salisbury, and he says, "Is Kem Birch considered a center? If he was considered a competent center, then Raptors fans wouldn't be trying to move hell and high water. I don't fucking know the term. To get another big man that's competent. So I mean, I think Kem's fine. Fine. I would prefer someone like someone mentioned Hartenstein. I'm a big fan of Hartenstein. I'd be happy with him, but that's someone you need to open up mid-level money for, in my opinion. And he might actually have options as a free agent in terms of, hey, I can go to like all these other good teams. Because if the mid-level is all you can offer, then so can like every other team pretty much. This is working to be a Mo Bamba thing.
Wow.
Look, David O'Connor. What about Mo Bamba? What about Mo Bamba? What about Mo Bamba, Mason?
Hook him. Let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, man. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what their solution is there, but I do think that they need to find somebody.
You saw they gave his number away, right?
What?
They gave his number away. Well,
yeah. They gave it to Paulo. I mean, I would too. Paulo is the number 1 overall pick. Paulo on the we were talking about earlier how tall Trey is. Paulo is enormous. That man is like 6'10", 6'11", easily. It's one thing to like see the measurements, and it's another to see these people in person. And Paulo, if he continues to showcase, like develop his skill, like I mean his ball handling's there, his passing there, that is going to be such an issue at his size. Like he's going to be a problem. I absolutely see why Orlando. Like I was not high on him as a prospect because I'm like, I don't know. I get like Julius Randle vibes. Julius Randle's like 6'6". This guy is like legit like 6'11". So yeah, I'll take the L on having Paulo at 4. I mean, who knows? Maybe I turn out to be right, but I'll take the L for now. Like Paulo's huge. Paulo is huge. We get Sky. Sky says, "Let's get Josh Hart back." Mason.
I mean, he's not a 5, but sure.
No.
I mean,
people gotta let the Josh Hart thing die, man. Like, Josh Hart had his time here. It was great. Let's not try to do this over again. Like, where are you gonna find him minutes? Is Josh gonna play 17 minutes a game off the bench? No, you're not gonna start him. Who are you gonna give him minutes? Sorry, man, y'all. Like the Josh Hart dream is over. It's over. We can't. I'm sorry.
He had a legitimately great year last year. Like
what
for Portland too.
You said he was great.
He had a good year.
Yeah, for his standards.
It was by far the best year of his career. And
let's leave it at that. Let's just leave it at that, man. Oh, what's up, Jeremy? We said Jeremy's in the chat. We're just scrolling through comments now. While we're scrolling through comments, I'm just gonna do a quick shout out to Royal Honda, who's been our sponsor. I agree with T5 the Great. We love Josh. Y'all gotta let that go. I completely agree. That's where I'm at. Sometimes you just gotta move on. Did Portland guarantee him today? I think it automatically guarantees if there's no like announcement on it. So I would be. I mean, there'd be no reason to unless they're clearing space for Ayton.
They went and traded for Jeremy Grant. They're not looking to bottom out here. They're gonna keep Josh. Josh played really well, and he's worth the money that he's getting next year.
Yeah, he's an incredible asset as a contract as well. Like if you want to do any kind of trades, you want to get John Collins, you want to get OG, Josh Hart's going to be in that deal, right? So there's no point in waiving. Yes, Jeremy says let Josh enjoy the wine in Portland. We agree with that. All right, that's enough about Josh. If y'all have any other questions, put them in the chat. Mason, did you have any other topics you wanted to bring up?
Let's see. We got the draft recap. Let's so any bold predictions for the start of free agency? It doesn't have to be Pelicans related. Just anything in general.
I don't know if it's bold because it's all like everyone's been talking about, but I still do think John Collins gets moved. And whoever he ends up getting moved to is going to have to move a lot of salary to do it. So that's going to be a big trade regardless. So does that end up being 2 teams, 3 teams? I don't know. The DeAndre Ayton stuff is interesting. I would say I think Atlanta ends up with him. So I'll just put the John Collins stuff in the middle of that. I say Atlanta ends up with DeAndre Ayton. What do you feel?
I still think Detroit is a reasonable spot. I mean, has anything been said about them just being out because of their draft? I mean, I feel like
that's the speculation, right? They drafted Duren, and why would you max out a guy who is going to play in front of him for the next 5 years and is also young, unless you believe one of them can be a 4, which is like a very, very, very interesting team because then you have Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham. I guess you would have to start Sadiq Bey because he'd be your only shooter outside of Cade, and then Duren and Ayton. That's a very big team. It's a very athletic team. I don't know. Maybe that's what they want to do, but you would have to believe that one of them is able to be a 4.
I no longer think they're the odds-on favorite, but I do think it's still an intriguing spot for him.
Kevin Durant to Portland. Josh Hart's going to be a net, baby.
I think they both stay with Brooklyn, at least for now. I think that the drama at least amounts to nothing in free agency, and we'll see. Or in the summer, we'll see what happens.
Dude, Sean Marks is going to get in there and be like, I traded like 15 fucking picks to get these guys. I can't let them go. Oh my gosh. It'd be a Houston. See, that's the thing is like, if you're
Iris get the full bag just because of that.
If you're a Pelicans fans, you really need to be rooting for the Nets to stay good for a little bit. And I know like it's far out picks, but stay good because then they keep the allure and they'll keep attracting free agents later. And then they'll have a momentum because you don't want Houston getting a bunch of good picks while you're trying to be good. Like you don't, you don't want that because there's a good chance Houston is going to get good by that time if they continue to draft in the top 5 over the next couple of years, and then by they get to 2027. Like you don't want that. Like, we don't want to load up our division unnecessarily.
Yeah, not to mention that indirectly, you could argue the Pelicans draft picks have skin in the game here because if you just let Giannis keep running through the Eastern Conference unopposed, then why? I mean, the only way that those picks have any value, and I don't want to be the guy that's rooting for a star to leave a small market, but that's the way that you get value from those picks later on from Milwaukee is if they're not good anymore. And so if they keep winning, I don't see a reason that that things would change in Milwaukee roster wise. And so I'd rather have more challengers in the East to them.
Yep. I agree, man. That's where I'm at. So I guess those are the big things. I guess Gobert is the next one. Yeah, I just don't think there's a worthwhile trade out there, especially because it seems like they were reporting Gobert. They're asking Danny Ainge is asking a lot, so this is going to be like we almost got John Collins, we almost got Gordon Hayward back. Oh, does Danny Ainge bring Gordon Hayward back? Is that a thing that's going to happen?
If there's a such thing as an anti-league pass team, that it's the Utah Jazz with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert still there, just fighting with each other every single game, not passing each other the ball.
Yeah, man, that's interesting. I actually like this one from James here. James says Gobert to the Bulls is something he can see. I like that. For the Bulls because it takes him out to the East, and then I assume Vucevic and some other salary, maybe Pat Williams would be in that deal, but to me, that would catalyze the departure of Donovan Mitchell, which is also, again, not something you want to be like root for, but fuck it, it's Utah. They're pox on their franchise. Fuck them. Yeah. So I think in the selfish interest of the Pels, I am willing to admit I would like Utah to be a bad team. So yeah, it'd be great. It'd be great for the Bulls to do that. I think. Speaking of free agency, Jack Smirking Revenge. Can we talk to get the original Pierre back? Good question. Let me text Griff right now.
We should get the old Pierre just for summer league. I think that would be fair. That's a fair compromise.
They need to lean into weird shit. Like everyone saw Utah get clowned for their jerseys because they're like, I don't even know how to describe their jerseys. They're just like someone got not even like word art. It's just someone just typed it out on like a Word document and printed a jersey of it and made it a highlighter color. Yeah, I mean, I think like the Pelicans jersey that leaked was like the Mardi Gras flag that was on the navy. That shit's just ugly. So I think the Pelicans need to lean into the weirdness of the Pelican brand, and that includes the original Pierre, at least making appearances from time to time. Maybe you bring him back on Halloween. Like you have a special Halloween night like promotion and be like, it's going to be a special surprise. And then Pierre just drops from like the rafters and he's just, like they put his face on like the big Jumbotron. And yeah, I would love that. Oh, and then like in behind the free throw line, you can like hand out like little like Pierre cutouts. Can you imagine shooting a free throw with that dude in your face? And just like I've had like hundreds of those cutouts just looking at you. Can you imagine that?
Y'all thought the king cake baby was scary? Just wait.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think that's it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Gobert. I'm gonna get a couple of more questions. This is from Ned Benjamin. It says, "Where do you see the Pels finishing in the West next year? A range is fine."
Oh, so you want me to go first?
Yeah.
I think they're I think that my hope is that they are.
Sorry for the podcast
No.
listeners. Jeremy Wilson commented that Milwaukee pick is getting tossed around like a Snoop rotation. Sorry. Back to the
I just want them to avoid the play-in, right? Like I think they can get to 6. This team's got some serious upside. I mean, it starts and ends with Zion Williamson, right? But I mean, they're a deep team, they're a talented team. The challenge is obviously the West is still deep as hell, and so I think that my hope again is that they avoid the play, and I think 6-7 is likely, but I think they can get better. I think they can get higher than that.
Yeah. If Zion's healthy, they're going to be a good team. Period. And I don't think they will be a play-in team only. And so I don't everyone's like, the West is so tough, blah blah blah. No, if Zion's healthy, they're a fucking good team, and people are gonna have trouble dealing with them. So that's where I'm at. But that's the if, right? And well, other people's health is important too. Like if you miss Jonas for 40 games, like that's going to be a problem, right? If you miss CJ for 40 games, you miss Brandon for literally anything. We've shown that they cannot win without Brandon Ingram in any capacity. They were like 2 of 17 or whatever. So yeah, I don't think that much needs to be stated, but yeah, health is going to be the driving factor. Yeah, so I think this is actually a good time to wrap it up. And before we do, obviously want to shout out our sponsor, DraftKings. And so, we have UFC 276 coming out. DraftKings Sportsbook's got a deal for you. If you bet $5, you can get $100 in free bets. So use the DraftKings Sportsbook promo code, The Boot. You see it on your screen right there. So just download that Sportsbook app right now. Place $5 on any UFC 276 fighter to win. Get $100 in free bets. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. If you or anyone has a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Crisis and referral services can also be accessed there. That's 1-800-426-2537. That's all we got for today's show. Shout out Royal Honda again.
Let's hit that last question there. because we got the same.
We go into summer league. That's the last question.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we're going to summer league.
Oh, yeah?
Absolutely, we'll be there. Actually, I'm trying to figure out a way to extend my stay there. So, we're figuring out, dude. I looked at my skate. I'm like, I'm there for one game, and I'm like, hell no, I want to be there for more than one Pelicans game. So we're gonna figure it out.
Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna be there.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
Cool. Stay tuned for more stuff. Appreciate y'all.
All right. See y'all.